Hey there folks, it's Johnny again and welcome back to some mix reviews and criticisms and whatnot. I got a whopping 3 in my inbox, so that's plenty for one video. If you want to get your mix reviews and get some feedback and get bashed if you like, just send me your mixes to johnnymixcrit@gmail.com. I should have chosen a shorter name that rolls off the tongue a little bit more easily. Let's start off with the first one by Pascal Schmidt. Okay, this guy mentions something about the toms not quite being there yet where he wants them to be, and he also remixed this little sample plenty of times, and he even offered me to play drums for me for one or the other song of mine. Hey, cool, thanks. Maybe we can do something in the future, we'll see. Okay, overall, first impression, it's not too bad. The kick perhaps could use a little bit less of that top end click frequency in there because it pokes out a little bit much. So you may want to melt it into the rest of the composition a little bit more. And let me check the low end real quick. Yeah, it's not too bad actually. I do notice quite some distortion happening on the whole master of this thing going on. I don't know, did he use a clipper on the whole mix and perhaps clipped it a little bit too hard or limited it a bit too hard? You notice it especially here towards the end when the rhythm guitars just fade out. There's a lot of extra clipping distortion going on top. Yeah, that brittle distortion going on. It's quite noticeable. You may want to ease up on whatever it is that you did there. The toms, yeah, they sound a little bit more on the raw side, but there's also not much toms going on here. Just this little section somewhere toward the beginning. Let me check again. Yeah, they have a little bit more of a raw feel to them. Personally, I think it fits into the style of the mix. So just objectively speaking, from a listener's perspective, I'd be fine with that. If you want to have a bit more smack in them, perhaps try bringing that attack out in the upper mid-range around this 2 to 4K, wherever you have that peak going on and that spike and that clickiness. On top of that, perhaps also a little bit more compression to make them a bit smackier. But also be careful with the sustain of the toms so they don't just go on with their boomy frequency, mudding everything up. You kind of need to use noise gating and compression and a good balance on toms to just get that right, that whole attack, to get it smacking while the sustain doesn't come up too much. Also with the kick drum, I guess you could lower the sub frequencies a little bit when there's double kick action going on, because it has quite a little bit of that woofy boomy build up down there, and then you just have this constant happening. And I mean, again, stylistically, this has a kind of a raw, rough feel. So I'd also almost say it fits. Then again, if you want to have it a little bit cleaner, a little bit clearer, that's maybe something you could look into. Okay, next one's by Maximilian Christian Letterman. Right away, I want to say you may want to work on the volume balance a little bit more. These synthesizers, they have this very atmospheric pad synth vibe going on, and they have a lot of frequencies rather in the lower mid-range, less in the upper mid-range, so they don't sound too present by nature. But the volume of them is pretty high, as if you want to make them very present. And that's kind of conflicting. So now these synthesizers are taking up a lot of space and a lot of your attention, and everything gets pushed back quite a bit. You notice it especially with the drums. They feel kind of distant. So you definitely want to have those synths come down a little bit. And perhaps also work on their EQ. If they are something you want to be up front, then definitely work on that EQ. You may want to have more upper mid-range, less lower mid-range, so they actually take up some space in the present frequency range that our ears are attuned to. And perhaps also support them with something that sounds a little bit more present. Something like a lead synthesizer. Just mix it in a little bit on the bottom just to give them a little bit more support, or a lead guitar that follows the same melody as these synths. My goodness, this is all complicated to pronounce for me. Yeah, and then the drums, they need to come up. Definitely the overheads need to come up, because they feel kind of in the back, and overheads, or let's say the cymbals, they actually add a lot of power and energy to a song. And when and when those are too quiet, you lose a lot of energy. I'm thinking faster than I can speak. The snare also could benefit from a little bit less reverb, a little bit more, well, for one, raise the volume, and then a little bit more upper range, upper frequencies crack, so it punches through the mix a little bit more. Right now it's kind of pushed towards the back a little bit. So yeah, you see, at this point we're talking about placing things in 3D space, and that's already kind of a more advanced step. Yeah, but I have the impression that it's not really much you have to do. It's just a couple of quick tweaks and you're actually there. The low end is a little bit on the muddy side. There's a lot of stuff going on there. I need to check this a little bit more carefully. Kind of hard to tell what exactly it is. It could be the bass guitar actually not being that great at producing these low frequencies very clearly, and it just kind of wobbles around. Or it could also be your rhythm guitars could use a little bit more filtering. And also the low end punch of the kick is a little bit masked. So make sure that comes up a little bit more, and anything else in the low end kind of stays out of the way. Especially again, bass guitars, so sidechain compressing bass with the kick always helps. Also the guitars. Yeah, the guitars, their distortion character kind of feel like this consistent white noise harshness. It's not totally out of whack, so the frequency balance is pretty good, but you still notice there's this constant going on. It could be a number of things that causing this. It could be the amp simulation you're using, it could be the cap that you're using, it could be the EQ that you have going on. This is actually a pretty complicated matter to get right. But I want to say, for stylistic choice, this works perfectly fine. Okay, it's not like this is completely damaging the mix or anything. You could just leave it like this and it'll be fine. Okay, people can enjoy that kind of sound, that kind of guitar tone. Personally, I'd say it could be a little bit more clearer, a bit more defined on the notes, especially when you go into these chord sections back here. See, at this section for me, I can barely make out what the guitars are even playing because all I hear is a consistent white noise. So at the very least, you may want to ease up on the gain on the amp simulator, and also kind of pinpoint that region where that white noisiness is most annoying, and then dip it down a little bit, and you'll notice the sound will actually become clearer and you get a little bit more note definition in there. Yeah, I know it sounds like I'm tearing this mix apart and I'm mentioning a whole slew of things, but as a whole, the mix is actually pretty much there. It just needs a couple of more tweaks and you'll be good. So last one for today is by Barnett.
Controlling your brain and not doing the things that I think are okay. You told me this, but I thought that, and now I wonder where I'm at. Hiding in a shell piece that decays. Eventually these walls will fade. Before the time I have left, I'll be praying that you do not come back. Faith fell out of line. Faith fell out of me. It's hard breathing for life. Will I bleed today? It's really hard contemplating your ways. You seem to be doing things the right way, but in my heart I know that what you said is nothing but a lie. These walls are broken and now I am afraid. I think it's best that I stay away.
yeah, this is pretty solid work. I really only have one tip for you. The low end of the kick could be raised a little bit more, so it smacked through a little bit more. It kind of feels a little bit masked by the bass, and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, I have absolutely nothing really to say to you. So, good job. Okay, and that's it again for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you next time.